So the thing that really gets me is I think a lot of the struggle between various types of philosophy and in society and politics is due to this intuitive artistic versus analytic engineering. And we think of this as a battle between different kinds of people, and which will win. You know, will we have a superstitious society? Will we have a cold, purely numbers measurement-oriented society? Really, it's a battle between the halves of our brain, and that could be just a rough approximation because it's different centers of our brain, organs, patterns that are distributed, ideas. Each of these is like its own program. The part of us that thinks of that I'm me, I'm Pyrrho. That is just one of these programs, all right? One of these circuits, okay? And they can be in battle with each other, and they are in this case. And we think it's different kinds of people, you know, the analytic type versus the intuitive type. Really, it's in our brains. And in their brains, it's just that the analytic person, their analytic side won. And in the creative person, the creative side won. It's probably good we have people at the extremes, right, with the depressed brain function of some sort, so that we can see what it's like to take the other to the extreme, explore. But really, we were going to have a bell curve, and we want that. And the healthy middle is going to be people that are, have a balance where both things get a say. I mean, I do that. You know, it's great to do a purely analytic analysis, but you know what? My emotional side gets a check off, a veto. And the vice versa, The emotional ideas that make no intellectual sense, I'm sorry. Second order doesn't count. Might be fun. Maybe write a story about it. Okay, it's not real enough to count. I got better things that don't get vetoed. You know, you have this idea. I should abuse these 1,000 workers because it's going to be good for my family. And look at the practicality, but it has no compassion to it. No, the emotional side says no, and that's the other thing too. It's not. They both sides are emotional, but what it is that one half of this brain can't speak, doesn't talk in words. And the other half doesn't sort of feel that emotional, poetic feel of it. You know, they both see a rose, and one of them doesn't have the emotional, aesthetic feel of the rose, doesn't come in on the wind of gentle perceptions. And the other side doesn't know the word. So one side just has the word, the other side doesn't have the word. And it's vice versa too. The side that doesn't have a word, it's hard to put a word on what it has on. But it has this feel. Okay, it has thoughts which are a lot more like our traditional emotions. Okay, it feels like an animal side because it has thoughts, whereas the thoughts on the word analytic side, they're more cold or clean of these kind of prejudices that wash you in a short period of time, that have this jerky kind of powerful presence. Okay, but there still are feelings like eureka. That's an intellectual feeling, and where does it happen in the brain? Which side? Who knows? But now they both can visualize, so they probably talk to each other in these visualizations. Like they both can do literal visual visualizations. Somebody could correct me, but I think all the senses basically there's some distribution in the sense processing, and there's enough that there's some shared things there. I know visually you can share. So they could probably, they probably communicate in this shared language of both being able to visualize. Okay. And so this battle is between really these two halves of our brain. And we think it's out there. And the joke is on us because it's inside of us. We think that our analytic side calls for one metaphysics and the emotional side calls for another metaphysics. There's one reason I want to get rid of metaphysics, you see, because that's what makes us think that they're diametrically opposed. Metaphysics, the thing is, with metaphysics, you should only just have one, the correct one, because it's deducible from nothing, but nobody ever deduced one like that. So what we have is a bunch of options, and they all are supposed to say, well, I'm totally correct. And if you switch back and forth, fine, it's totally correct. No, this other one. And you kind of, there's a fundamental incompatibility between two different metaphysics, because by the whole logic and lexicon and language of metaphysics, one's right and the other one's wrong, or they're both wrong. Okay. But by making those just theories, then they're both wrong to some degree, don't apply in some case, and both right to some degree and apply better in some other case. Okay. So the fact that you have an intuitive side and an analytic side, instead of going, oh my God, we're in big conflict because I fundamentally believe at the basis of metaphysics that's totally contradictory to what you fundamentally believe, and see how different we are. You know, you can go, well, I look at it from this way and you look at it from that way, and it's because I'm on this half of the body and you're on that half, and we look from different freaking angles. It's not such a huge conflict. No, it's a balance, it's triangulation, it's opportunity to have more than one idea. You ever heard two heads are better than one? Hello, you've got two heads inside there. Two heads are better than one. So, yeah, this conflict is really is pervasive and misunderstood, and it's the two halves being physically separate organs that makes a great example. But I believe it breaks down further than that. All kinds of ideas at conflict in the brain, and with these different perspectives, all the different human ways of looking at something, such a wide range. You know, collected emotions collected from millions of years of evolution from all sorts of previous, you know, and held on. We just have just so many little subtle emotions and sensors and things, and they come from a different perspective. You know, it's like your touch. You have multiple kinds of touch, right? So there's the heat touch, where you can tell if something's hot, and there's pain touch. Is separate. Those are two separate things. Okay. So, you know, one of them is like, does this thing hurt? It's like, that's the issue. If it feels good, it doesn't care if it's hot or cold. Of course, if it's really hot and it doesn't feel good, it's like, oh my God, it's hot. I hate hot. You know, but it's really, you know, there's separate sensors, and you know, if they come off in certain combinations, they're interpreted a certain way. And but down at the base, tiniest level there, you know, they come from a different perspective. They're asking a different question. Is it cold? Does it hurt? Is it hot? Does it hurt? Those are two different questions, two different perspectives. And we are merging all these. It's kind of easy to merge them at that level, right? Like, you have two eyes, and they come from a different angles, different perspectives, get slightly different pictures. Well, that's easy. We subconsciously just automatically merge those guys. Well, at a higher level, we have to more consciously do it. You know, and as far as merging intellects, well, this is the trick we haven't done. You know, evolution sort of is like, well, either we'll kill you off trying, or we'll merge it eventually. We'll get this stuff all working. We'll either debug it, or you die. I think, you know, our survival is going pretty strong, so there's a good chance we'll debug it. But that's the funny thing. You know, we might kill ourselves. You know, nuclear holocaust or something. And because it certainly doesn't look like something else is going to kill us, which, you know, is pretty good. It could be worse. It could be like something else is going to kill us. But this is what we have to do. We have to integrate all of our philosophies. Any philosophy we can imagine, assume some part of you, you know, is sympathetic to that or believes it. You know, I mean, I have a cutoff point. You know, philosophies that advocate violence and stuff. It's like, no part of me is going to be sympathetic. When I imagine that, it's totally from like, my sympathy is entirely like a psychiatric sympathy, like, oh, bad childhood led to this, or, oh, poor guy, chemical imbalance. You know, I might have some sympathy left like that. But mostly, if it's as reasonable at all, you know, I'll try to think, you know, probably some side of me could see going with that, and then think of it as a cooperation within myself. It makes it easier to negotiate with other people when you realize that part of yourself, you know, feels that way. Maybe just some little 1%, 5% of me kind of gets that argument, and give that 5%, you know, respect. Because, yeah, it's only 5%, but if there's a Congress of 100 people in your mind deciding something, and 5 of them believe something, you know, they get to go to the podium, they get listened to, they don't get demonized, they don't get, you know, threatened by having such a different perspective. So